The greatest battles are not always visible. Sometimes the greatest effort is simply to keep going, even when everything inside us wants to stop. And if you made it this far, it's because you chose to move forward, despite everything. This silent walk carries more strength than many can see. And God saw it. He always did. Every hidden tear, every hard decision made in the dark, every act of kindness, even with a tired heart. Nothing went unnoticed by his eyes. The world may have ignored your pain, but heaven recorded every detail. This journey was not in vain. It has been shaped with purpose, care, and truth. Now it's time to bloom. What was born in secret begins to take form. The strength that was cultivated in silence now manifests in peace, balance, and presence. Not because everything became easy, but because you became someone who carries light even in the midst of darkness. God is revealing what was once invisible. I'm George, and I want to thank you for being here. If this message touched your heart, I invite you to follow the channel. There's much more to come, and I want to keep walking with you on this journey of faith, truth, and transformation. Let's go together. God saw what no one else saw, and He is moving. God saw what no one else saw. You made it this far, carrying marks that not everyone can see. There are stories within you that no one knows. And still, you kept going. When everything felt too heavy, something inside you would not let you stop. That strength did not come by chance. It was planted in secret. And the one who planted it was God. He saw every step. There were days when you wanted to disappear, but you showed up. There were mornings when fear tried to take over, and even so, you got out of bed. That was not weakness. That was courage in its purest form. Silent courage that does not need a stage. God was there in those moments. He saw everything. Nothing went unnoticed. Perhaps you felt that no one noticed your effort. And many times, that was true. But just because the world did not see it, does not mean God did not see it. On the contrary, He was attentive to every detail. The good you did in silence, the hug you gave even with a broken heart, He missed none of it. When you smiled so as not to worry anyone, even while in pain, heaven recorded it. When you gave up the last word to keep the peace, even when you were right, heaven saw that too. Every time you chose to be light in a dark environment, even without being valued, God was there. Your effort was never invisible to Him. There are people who only value what is visible. But God looks at the heart. While the world praises those who appear strong, He draws near to those who are tired, yet keep going. While others see appearance, He sees truth. And your truth has been beautiful, even when it was hard. God has been pleased with that. There are battles you never told anyone about. There are decisions only you know how much they cost. And that's okay. You do not need to explain yourself. Because even without words, God understood. He knows your good days and your bad days. He knows what you hide. And that is what makes Him such a faithful God. He sees what no one else sees. What lies ahead will not be just an answer. It will be recognition. Not human recognition, but heavenly. God will make visible what you cultivated in silence. He will cause to bloom what seemed lost. Not because you deserved it, but because He honors what is true. And you remained true, even when no one applauded you for it. You thought nothing was happening, but heaven was at work. Now the time has come when everything aligns. What seemed like delay was preparation, and that preparation is becoming revelation. What was born in secret will manifest with grace. It will not be noise. It will be presence. It will not be effort. It will be fruit, and that fruit will be seen. The strength you cultivated in silence. Most people value what can be measured, They want results, trophies, visible proof. But God sees the root, not just the fruit. He values the silent process, hidden growth, the choices made in the dark. What you faced in silence had eternal value. Your hidden pain was never useless. How many times did you want to respond, but chose to remain silent out of wisdom? How many times did you swallow tears to keep the peace? You could have closed yourself off, but you chose to love. That is strength. A strength that does not need to shout to be felt. A courage that makes no noise but builds a solid foundation for better days. You broke patterns, left old behaviors behind, chose a lighter path even though it was harder. Maybe no one applauded that. Maybe when you finally changed, everything around you stayed the same. But God saw the internal struggle. He saw every choice that demanded more from you than others imagine. You planted with tears, and you kept going, even without seeing any sign of harvest. Heaven recorded every step. Those days when you questioned whether it was worth continuing, and yet you continued. This kind of strength is not learned from books. It is shaped in the field of the soul, in the furnace of patience. When doors closed, you thought you were being rejected, but in truth you were being redirected. What seemed like a loss was God protecting you. The time that seemed like waiting was in fact preparation. You were not forgotten. You were being refined for something that requires a firm foundation. You were not shaped for applause. You were shaped to impact lives. That kindness you offered without expecting anything in return will echo back. Every small act, every gesture that seemed unnoticed, is returning multiplied. Not because you demanded a return, but because you were genuine. The time has come when your light will no longer be hidden. The world will not fully understand how, but it will feel the difference. Your presence carries peace. Your words convey truth. You spent so long being strong on the inside that now your strength is beginning to show on the outside, and whoever looks will recognize it. This new season is the result of what you lived when no one was around. Everything that seems small now gains proportion. God did not forget a single detail. The harvest was not delayed. It was only waiting for you to be ready. And now, you are. When heaven responds to silence for a long time, many looked at you and saw what seemed to be an end. They believed the silence around you was proof that you had been forgotten. They thought your absence in certain places was a sign of defeat. But what they didn't know is that heaven works where human eyes cannot reach. The pauses that seemed too long now show they were necessary. The no's that hurt so much now reveal they were making room for something better. What seemed like delay was actually care. God was not standing still. He simply chose to prepare everything in detail. And everything done with love takes time to be ready. It wasn't because of merit, performance, or perfection. What's coming is not the result of you becoming what others wanted. It's coming because you chose to keep being who you are. Even without applause, even without recognition, you didn't compromise your essence. It was this faithfulness to truth that held everything together. There were moments when you could have chosen the easier path. All it took was to give in, to adapt, to please. But you didn't want that. You chose to preserve your peace, even while being misunderstood. You decided to keep your light, even in environments that didn't know how to handle brightness. And it was in that silent choice that God began to act on your behalf. The time has come when you no longer need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify the choices you made. Your presence now carries a story that speaks without words. You're no longer just resistance. Now you are an answer. What once was an internal struggle has now become an atmosphere of balance wherever you go. You're not receiving because you impressed someone. You're reaping because you didn't give up planting. You kept acting with kindness when everything said otherwise. You kept praying even when you felt unheard, and all of that was counted. Every gesture, every effort, every sacrifice, now everything returns, not as payment, but as confirmation. Prepare to walk more lightly. You no longer need to carry so many burdens. That guilt that wasn't yours. That silent pressure no one understood. It's all being left behind. This new phase doesn't require you to prove anything to anyone. You only need to keep walking, with peace in your chest and your soul at peace with God. The weight of your presence. You'll notice a change around you. It won't be loud, but it will be real. People will start to notice something different about you, even without understanding what changed. It's your presence that has transformed, not because you forced it, but because the strength you built inside is now manifesting effortlessly. Every pain you endured left invisible marks that didn't deform you, but shaped you. You were refined by pain, by waiting, by misunderstanding. But instead of becoming cold or hard, you chose to grow through it. You learned to feel without getting lost, to help without emptying yourself. And that has now become part of your essence. You don't need to tell everything you've lived. You're not obligated to expose your wounds or justify your evolution. Heaven saw every detail of your journey, and that's enough. You don't need to convince anyone. The way you enter a room speaks for itself. The truth in you is felt, not explained. The time of forcing doors is over. Now they open naturally. You no longer need to insist on places where there's no space for your light. God prepared new paths, the right people, and peaceful ways. What you once begged for in desperation now flows with ease. It's a new rhythm, lighter, more sincere. Maybe at first this feels strange. After so much time fighting battles, the calm can be unsettling. But it's real. You can trust it. It's not an illusion. It's harvest. Your soul knows what it went through to get here. Now, it also deserves the joy of taking a deep breath without fear of what's to come. The love that arrives now doesn't ask you to hide. It recognizes your light without trying to dim it. It doesn't require you to shrink your truth to fit into small spaces. It welcomes you just as you are. This love doesn't demand perfection, only presence. And you, more than ever, are whole enough to receive it. This new time is a reflection of what you've become. It's no longer about chasing what's already yours. The atmosphere around you carries a new energy, and it didn't come from the outside. It was born inside of you. While others waited to see change in the results, God was working on the root. Your strength was forged in silence, but now it reveals itself in calm. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to defend yourself to be respected. The peace you transmit is the fruit of the peace you found, and it becomes visible even when you say nothing. Your decision changed everything. There is a change happening in your life, and it didn't come just with the passing of days. It arrived because you reconnected with your truth. You stopped trying to fit where you didn't belong. You stopped diminishing who you are just to remain accepted. Now you stand as someone who recognizes their own worth. You didn't seek the easiest path. When you could have hidden, you chose to be transparent. When you could have stayed silent, you chose to respect yourself. Your decisions didn't come with applause, but they came with roots. You chose the truth, even when it cost you the company of many. And that was the turning point heaven had been waiting for. Those moments when you said enough were more important than you realize. When you decided not to live under the shadow of others' approval, something moved in the spiritual realm. That silent courage caught heaven's attention. You weren't rewarded for being perfect, but for being honest with your soul. You're not receiving a prize. You are living the consequence of having planted with intention. You watered your own essence with faith, even without guarantees. You didn't wait for things to improve to have hope. You had hope while everything still seemed confusing. That faithfulness to yourself created space for something new to be born within you. The doors that are opening now are not tied to desperate effort. They are opening because you changed from within. You are no longer the same person who began this journey. And that transformation came with tears, with falls, with sleepless nights. But it also came with strength, light, and a new sense of direction. This new time doesn't require you to show off, nor to prove yourself. Your very existence already speaks for itself. You radiate something different, because you carry a story that was lived in depth. Every decision made in silence, every sacrifice no one saw, is now bearing fruit that goes beyond appearances. You are living the turning point that only happens when the soul stops abandoning itself. You understood that peace is not worth trading for crumbs of acceptance. You chose to walk alone for a while, and that's why you now walk lighter. God's company never left you, and that's what sustained you up to now. What is appearing before you is proof that choices made with integrity always bring transformation. Not immediately, not always understood, but real. And now that reality is beginning to take shape. You didn't seek the spotlight, but your truth has become impossible to ignore. Nothing planted by God can be canceled. Many thought that ignoring you would be enough to silence you. They judged that your value depended on public recognition. But what is established by God does not disappear in the absence of applause. You were planted with purpose, and no rejection was able to nullify that. Your time did not pass. It was merely being preserved. People confuse silence with defeat. But you were never standing still. You were just hidden for a time. While they thought nothing was happening, heaven was preparing the answer. God took care of every detail calmly, and now what was done in the invisible is becoming visible. Not out of revenge, but out of justice. You don't need to wish for anyone to see your shine. It will be inevitable. Those who belittled you will have to admit they were wrong. Not because you'll demand it, but because your light will become evident. Whoever judged the seed will have to look at the fruit. The harvest that's coming is a sign of a well-rooted foundation. The spaces that once closed coldly will now open with respect. The same ones who questioned your ability will be surprised by your rise. Not because you begged, but because God Himself decided to honor your journey. He does not allow a faithful heart to remain forgotten forever. You were invisible for a time, not because you were weak, but because you were being molded. Your strength didn't come from the outside. It came from the resilience you built in silence. Now that strength will be felt. Your presence will no longer go unnoticed, because it carries something that cannot be faked. Lived truth. Those who mocked your process will see with their own eyes what you never needed to announce. They thought time would erase what was in you, but time only matured what was in formation. What is born of God cannot be suffocated by human voices. Do not seek revenge. Your victory is not about proving anything. It's about expressing the truth of who you are. Every step you take now is accompanied by grace. Your walk has become firm because it's grounded in what does not change, and that is enough to transform everything around you. Now is the time to bloom. You went through a long season where it seemed nothing was changing. You waited with patience, even when everything in you wanted to give up. You kept believing without seeing any signs. And now, something new begins to emerge. It's not magic, it's not luck. It's an answer. It's the harvest of every act of faith you maintained, even in dry ground. The blessings that are approaching are not just rewards. They are confirmations that God saw everything. He saw every hidden tear, every choice made with a heavy heart. He saw your faith when no one else saw any reason to continue. And now, he is bringing to light what was cultivated in silence. You are no longer trying to survive. You are ready to bloom. What seemed stagnant is beginning to show signs of life. Your inner self aligned with the right time. The seasons are changing because your soul has matured. You are no longer the same. Now you carry beauty even in your scars. Nothing you've lived through was wasted. Every sacrifice had a purpose. Every weight had its role. And now, all of it makes sense. God is not just blessing you, He is revealing you. Your life will be an answer for many. Your light is not just for you. It is also a beacon for others who are still in the dark. The transformation you're living no longer depends on who understands or supports you. Now you bloom without needing anyone's permission. You don't have to mold yourself to expectations. Your authenticity is enough. The world will adapt to your new version, not the other way around. And that brings freedom. This phase does not require effort to maintain what is yours. The lightness that now arrives is the fruit of the hard path you walked. You can trust this peace. It didn't come to last a day. It came to be your new environment. It is heaven's gift to those who didn't give up on being true. You didn't make it this far by accident. You were guided, cared for, trained for this time. Everything that once seemed impossible now becomes accessible. Not out of arrogance, but because you learned to wait with humility. And those who wait with faith bloom with honor. God does not forget His own. Everything you faced until now had a purpose. Every moment of silence, every battle fought in the dark, every choice made with a heavy heart. Nothing was ignored. Now you begin to understand that what seemed like abandonment was care. That what seemed like delay was just the right time being drawn with precision. God did not speed up the process because He was interested in depth. He didn't just want to give you blessings, but to form in you the kind of person who would know how to handle them. While you waited for answers, He was strengthening you. While you cried quietly, He was taking note of every detail. Your faithfulness was seen. Your silent faith was heard. The transformation you're living has nothing to do with loud victories. It has to do with everything you refused to abandon, even when everything seemed to go against you. It has to do with the peace you chose to keep, even under pressure. With the love you decided to keep offering, even in the midst of rejection. Now you begin to walk differently. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you went through a process that shaped you. The strength that now overflows from you was born from decisions made in pain. The lightness that now accompanies you is the result of a soul that learned to trust in God's timing. What's coming is not just to please you, it is to position you. Your story begins to serve as healing for others. What you faced prepared you to be an answer. What hurt you will bring relief to someone. Not because you have all the right words, but because you carry truth. You no longer need to justify yourself. Who you are is enough. Your presence, without effort, already says so much. The environments where you were once misunderstood will now adjust to what you carry. The light that once seemed uncomfortable will now become a reference. Not because you asked for it, but because God decided to exalt what He Himself planted. Stay firm. Stay light. You got here by a path that only you know. Don't underestimate the beauty of your journey. You are living proof that God does not forget, does not abandon, and never fails. Your life is a testimony that there is a reward for those who choose to remain true, even when the whole world seems to walk in the opposite direction. If this word spoke to you in any way, tell me in the comments. Which part touched your heart the most? I really want to know what this message awakened in you. Your sharing can encourage others who also need to remember that they are not alone. Let's spread this truth together. You were, are, and always will be chosen. D.